Ancient temples guard a silent language written in stone. These massive structures are not just monuments of faith, but complex repositories of cosmic knowledge, deliberately encoded by their builders. This journey uncovers the forbidden geometry hidden within their walls, revealing a secret mathematical language of sacred ratios and celestial alignments. By the end, you will see humanity's most famous landmarks in a completely new light, and you will understand the profound wisdom etched into their very foundations. Why would ancient cultures go to such lengths to hide advanced knowledge in plain sight? And what does this say about our own understanding of history? What hidden pattern in the world around you have you always felt but never seen? This geometric language begins with the most fundamental shapes. A single point expands into a circle, the universal symbol of unity and wholeness, containing infinite potential. From this simple origin, complexity unfolds. When two circles of the same size overlap so that the center of one lies on the circumference of the other, they create a shape known as the Vessica Piscis. This almond-shaped form in the center is far more than an intersection. It was seen by ancient philosophers as the womb of creation, the generative pattern from which all other forms emerge. It is the first day of geometric genesis. From this single act of overlap, the foundational proportions for the square and the triangle can be derived, establishing the very building blocks of reality as they understood it. This pattern then multiplies. Adding more circles creates the flower of life, a network of interlocking rings that resembles a honeycomb. At its heart lies the seed of life, a cluster of 7 circles that symbolizes the 7 days of creation, not in a literal sense, but as stages of cosmic emergence. These were not just pretty patterns to be drawn on parchment. They were considered the underlying blueprints of life itself, the sacred architecture of the universe made visible. Why would a civilization that had not yet invented the modern wheel possess such a deep, symbolic understanding of form and space? The answer lies in their worldview. They saw the cosmos as an ordered, intelligent system, and these geometric laws were the grammar of that system. To build a temple was to replicate this divine order on earth. By encoding the seed of life into a temple's floor plan, or using the proportions of the Vessica Piscis to determine the height of a doorway, the builders were not merely constructing a building. They were performing an act of high philosophy, grounding celestial principles into the very stone beneath their feet. This sacred geometry was their way of whispering the secrets of the cosmos into the walls around them, creating a resonant space that mirrored the harmony of the heavens. This mathematical whisper in stone finds its most famous voice in a number known as the golden ratio. Represented by the Greek letter phi, its value is approximately 1.618. What makes this number so captivating is its seemingly deliberate presence in the natural world. You can find it in the elegant spiral of a nautilus shell, where each chamber grows in proportion to the last by this exact ratio. It governs the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower and the branching of trees, creating a pattern of growth that is both efficient and breathtakingly beautiful. This is why it earned the name the divine proportion, as if it were the signature of a master artist on the canvas of creation. Ancient builders, observing this pattern everywhere in life, sought to replicate it in their most sacred structures. They were not just building shelters for worship, they were attempting to capture the very essence of life's beauty in stone. Look at the Parthenon in Greece. Archaeologists and mathematicians have long noted that the facade of this iconic temple fits perfectly within a golden rectangle. This is a rectangle whose side lengths are in the golden ratio. If you dissect its proportions, the relationship between its width and height, the placement of its columns, even the dimensions of its inner chambers, all seem to echo this 1.618 relationship. The result is a structure that feels inherently balanced and harmonious to the human eye, even in ruins. This same principle appears thousands of years earlier and miles away in the monumental form of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The ratio of the pyramid's slant height to half its base length is remarkably close to the golden ratio. This is not a matter of simple coincidence. Experts suggest this was a deliberate encoding, a way for the builders to infuse a man-made mountain with the perceived perfection of the natural order. By using phi, they were constructing a physical bridge between the earthly realm and the divine, a testament written in geometry asserting that the same laws that govern a growing shell also govern the cosmos. This was their high philosophy, made not with words but with measured stone. Yet beyond the golden ratio, another profound secret is locked within the geometry of sacred spaces. The ancient challenge of squaring the circle represents a symbolic fusion of cosmic ideals. This was not merely an impossible math problem for them. It was a grand spiritual metaphor, a geometric representation of the ultimate goal to unite the earthly realm of matter with the infinite realm of spirit. The square, with its 4 equal sides, symbolizes the physical world, the 4 elements, and the cardinal directions. The circle, with no beginning and no end, represents the celestial, the divine, and the eternal cycle of existence. To square the circle was to bring these 2 opposing principles into perfect harmony. This symbolic act was a central, driving force behind the designs of countless ancient temples, creating structures that served as bridges between worlds. Consider the enigmatic circle of Stonehenge. Its outer sarsen circle and inner horseshoe of trilithons are framed by a massive square formed by the station stones at its corners. While not a perfect geometric solution, the entire monument can be seen as a profound attempt to reconcile the circular with the rectangular, to enclose the celestial cycles tracked by its stones within a defined, almost earthly order. This is architecture as spiritual philosophy. This concept finds even more explicit expression in the Hindu temples of India. Their construction is governed by the Vastu Purusha mandala, a sacred square diagram that is also a symbolic map of the cosmos. Within this square, the circle is inherently present, representing the cyclical nature of time and the movement of the heavens. The temple itself, built upon this mandala, becomes a squared circle, a place where the devotee enters the finite, material square to experience the infinite, spiritual circle of the divine. Every stone, every proportion was a deliberate code. This geometric encoding was a silent lesson for initiates to contemplate, a permanent reminder etched into the landscape that human existence itself is a journey to harmonize our physical bodies with our boundless consciousness. What other profound truths did these builders hide in the very angles and curves of their most holy sites? But the geometric code extends beyond what the eyes can see, into the realm of what the ears can hear. Astonishingly, the very same simple ratios that create the most beautiful and harmonious sounds in music are also embedded in the stonework of these ancient temples. The perfect octave, which feels so complete and resonant, is a simple ratio of 2:1. The uplifting perfect fifth is a ratio of 3:2. These are not complex mathematical formulas. They are the fundamental building blocks of auditory harmony, and they appear again and again in sacred architecture. This was no coincidence. The builders saw a direct and powerful link between the harmony we hear and the harmony we see, believing both were expressions of a single universal law. Take, for example, the biblical descriptions of King Solomon's temple. While the physical structure is long gone, its recorded dimensions reveal a profound use of these harmonic ratios. The main hall, the holy place, is described as being 40 cubits long, while the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, was a perfect cube of 20 cubits. This creates a simple 2-to-1 ratio, the exact same proportion as a musical octave. It is as if the very layout of the temple was a chord progression made of stone, moving from one sacred space to the next in a harmonic sequence. The structure was designed not just for ritual, but for resonance, to align the worshipper with the fundamental frequencies of creation. This same silent symphony plays out within the Great Pyramid of Giza. The dimensions of its principal chambers, like the King's Chamber, have been analyzed to reveal ratios that correspond to these musical intervals. The geometry of the space itself seems to be an architectural representation of a perfect fifth or a fourth. This implies that these structures were never meant to be silent tombs or empty halls. They were designed to be in tune with the cosmos, creating a space that was both physically and spiritually attuned. The stones themselves were orchestrated to sing a silent, continuous song of cosmic order, a frequency of harmony that would, in theory, influence anyone within its field. If geometry is the universe's frozen music, then these temples are its grandest concert halls, playing a melody written in the language of ratio and proportion for all of eternity. This silent symphony of stone found its ultimate expression by reaching for the stars. The geometry of these sacred sites did not stop at the walls. It extended upwards, connecting the earthly temple directly to the cosmic dance of the heavens. Ancient builders transformed stone and mortar into sophisticated observatories, encoding their profound celestial knowledge through precise alignments with the sun, moon, and stars. This was not simply about marking time. It was about anchoring sacred space to the rhythms of the universe, creating a calendar in stone that synchronized human ritual with celestial events. A powerful example lies in the ancient mound of Newgrange in Ireland, a structure older than both Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids. Its most stunning feature is a narrow opening above the entrance, a roof box that was no accident of design. For just a few precious minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, a single beam of sunlight pierces through this opening. It travels down a long, dark passageway to dramatically illuminate the inner burial chamber, flooding the sacred space with light. This event transforms the tomb from a place of death into a symbol of rebirth, a direct physical manifestation of the sun's victory over darkness. It is a perfect alignment, a geometric connection between a man-made structure and a specific point in the solar cycle, engineered with astonishing precision over 5,000 years ago. On the other side of the world, the Sun Temple of Konark in India takes this concept to a monumental scale. The entire temple is designed as a colossal chariot of the sun god Surya, pulled by 7 stone horses. Its architecture is a masterclass in celestial alignment. The main temple was positioned so that the first rays of the rising sun would strike the central deity within the sanctum. Furthermore, the entire complex is laid out with such geometric precision that the shadows cast by its pillars and spires act as a giant sundial, marking the hours of the day with impeccable accuracy. Here, the temple itself becomes a dynamic clock and calendar, its very stones telling the time under the sun's eternal gaze. These alignments reveal a deep, empirical understanding of celestial mechanics, a knowledge gained through patient, generations-long observation of the skies. Yet this knowledge was never separate from their spiritual worldview. It was seamlessly woven into it. By aligning their temples with the solstices and equinoxes, the builders were doing more than tracking seasons. they were creating a permanent bridge between the human and the divine, proving that the same geometric order that governed their sacred blueprints also governed the motion of the cosmos itself. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as the ultimate testament to this ancient geometric language. Its overwhelming scale is matched only by the impossible precision of its form. Every angle and every measurement seems to whisper a secret mathematical truth. Consider this remarkable fact: the pyramid's base perimeter, divided by twice its original height, gives a value startlingly close to pi, the mathematical constant for the circle. It is a structure built from straight lines and square corners that somehow contains the essence of the circle within its fundamental proportions. This is not a random occurrence, it is a deliberate encoding, a sophisticated puzzle left in stone for future generations to unravel. The same deliberate design is seen in the pyramid's famous slopes, which many researchers argue embody the golden ratio, creating that uniquely stable and visually perfect triangular silhouette. But the encoding goes even deeper into the very scale of our world. Compelling theories propose the Great Pyramid was a geodetic marker, a monumental representation of the Northern Hemisphere. Its perimeter relates to the Earth's equatorial circumference in a precise scale, while its original height bears a specific relationship to the planet's polar radius. The builders seem to be saying that the same principles of harmony and proportion that govern their sacred geometry also govern the entire Earth. This transforms the pyramid from a simple tomb into a cosmic model, a repository of advanced geodetic and astronomical knowledge. Its geometry was not a decorative afterthought, it was the very heart of its purpose. The structure itself becomes a single, massive sentence written in the language of mathematics, declaring that human achievement, when guided by cosmic law, can touch the divine. How did a civilization from the dawn of history come to possess and physically manifest such an integrated understanding of math, geography, and the heavens? The pyramid does not give up its secrets easily, but its silent, geometric testimony continues to challenge everything we thought we knew about the past. Centuries after the pyramids, the same forbidden geometry found a new voice in the stone of medieval Europe. Gothic cathedrals like Chartres and Notre Dame are not just feats of engineering, they are conscious acts of spiritual encoding, where every line and curve whispers an ancient mathematical secret. Their breathtaking vaults and radiant rose windows are masterpieces built from a simple, powerful vocabulary of shapes: the square, the triangle, and the pentagon. These were not arbitrary choices. They were the foundational tools for a sacred architecture designed to do one thing: to lift the human soul toward the heavens. This was achieved through two specific geometric techniques known as ad quadratum and ad triangulum. Ad quadratum, meaning from the square, used the square as the generating unit for the entire cathedral's floor plan. The width of the nave, the placement of the transepts, the overall footprint, all were derived from a series of interrelated squares, creating a stable, earthly foundation that represented the material world. But then ad triangulum took over. This technique used the triangle, particularly the equilateral triangle, to generate the cathedral's soaring elevation. The height of the arches, the sweep of the ribbed vaults, the very ascent of the spires were all determined by these triangles reaching upward. The square gave the structure its earthly anchor, while the triangle provided its celestial ambition. You can see this interplay clearly in the design of the classic rose window. Its intricate tracery is often based on a pentagon or a five-pointed star, a shape rich with golden ratio proportions, all framed within the circular form of the window itself. This is the squaring of the circle made manifest, a complex harmony of shapes designed to fill the space with colored light and direct your gaze and your spirit inexorably upward. This knowledge was not public. It was the guarded secret of the Mason guilds, a continuous thread of esoteric understanding passed from master to apprentice for generations. For them, geometry was far more than a practical tool. It was a direct path to the divine, a means of using earthly materials to create a resonance with heavenly order. To stand in such a space was to be unconsciously enveloped in this silent, geometric sermon, a permanent instruction etched in stone and light on how to transcend the mundane. What other hidden symmetries lie waiting to be decoded in the world's most familiar structures? So how did these master builders translate such complex blueprints into reality with nothing but stone and copper tools? Their secret lay not in advanced machinery, but in an ingenious application of simple principles. They mastered the use of basic tools like knotted cords, wooden stakes, and simple sighting rods to inscribe massive, perfect geometric patterns directly onto the landscape. A rope with knots tied at precise, equal intervals could be stretched between stakes to create perfect circles, or to measure out the sides of a square using the timeless principle of the 3-4-5 triangle. This simple method, known to cultures across the globe, guarantees a perfect right angle every time. If you create a triangle with sides measuring 3 units, 4 units, and 5 units, the angle between the 3 and 4 unit sides will always be exactly 90 degrees. With nothing more than a knotted rope, a team could lay out the perfectly square foundation for a pyramid or temple, ensuring its cosmic alignment began with geometric purity. For more sophisticated surveying, instruments like the Egyptian merchant or the Roman groma provided unparalleled precision. The groma was a simple yet brilliant device, a cross-shaped instrument with plumb bobs hanging from each arm. By sighting across the suspended lines, a Roman surveyor could establish perfectly straight lines and right angles across vast distances, laying out the grid for entire cities and forts with an accuracy that still astounds engineers today. These tools prove that their genius was not magical, it was methodological. It was a profound understanding that the grandest cosmic designs could be realized through the most fundamental earthly tools. But the tools themselves were only part of the story. This sacred knowledge was a protected legacy passed down through generations. It existed in meticulously guarded oral traditions and perhaps in secret manuscripts that were never meant for public eyes. The master builder was not just an engineer, he was a custodian of a living philosophy. He held in his mind the geometric secrets, the seasonal alignments, and the proportional rules that would guide a project that might not be completed in his own lifetime. This long-term vision is almost unimaginable today. A single cathedral could take centuries to build, yet its final form remained faithful to the original geometric code laid down by the first master mason. This continuity of purpose across generations underscores the profound importance they placed on this geometric accuracy. It was not merely about structural integrity, it was about spiritual fidelity. Getting the angles right was a devotional act, a way to ensure that the finished temple would truly resonate with the harmony of the cosmos. Their methods demystify their achievements not by making them seem simple, but by revealing the depth of their dedication. They remind us that true precision begins not with technology, but with intent. That sacred language of form and number was never meant to be sterile data. For the master builders, every line and every angle was a word in a profound spiritual text. A circle was not just a shape, it was a direct symbol of eternity, of the boundless heavens and the divine with no beginning and no end. The square, in perfect contrast, represented the solid, stable, and manifest world of the 4 elements and the 4 cardinal directions. And a spiral was not merely a curve, it was a map of the soul's journey, of cosmic evolution and the path toward enlightenment. This symbolic vocabulary was used with deliberate intent, turning entire temples into three-dimensional scriptures for the initiated to read. Consider the breathtaking Jain temples of Ranakpur in India. Here, the architecture is a forest of white marble with 1,444 uniquely carved columns, no two exactly alike. Yet this apparent complexity arises from a foundation of pure geometric order. The entire temple complex is a massive mandala, a cosmic diagram laid out in stone. As a devotee walks through the halls, they are literally traversing a symbolic map of the universe. The intricate patterns on the ceilings and floors, based on repeating squares and lotus blossoms, are not just decoration. They are visual mantras designed to focus the mind and guide it from the illusion of the multifaceted material world, represented by the countless columns, toward the singular, central truth of the divine. This is geometry as a guided meditation, where the very path you walk is a lesson in moving from complexity to unity. On a grander scale, the vast temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is laid out as a representation of Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the world in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. Its iconic 5 towers are not randomly placed. They form a quincunx, a pattern of one central point with 4 surrounding points, mirroring the peaks of the sacred mountain. The massive moat surrounding the complex symbolizes the cosmic ocean at the edge of creation. Every step from the outer wall toward the central sanctuary is a symbolic ascent from the earthly realm to the celestial abode of the gods. The visitor, often without even realizing it, is acting out a spiritual pilgrimage coded directly into the architecture. The geometric layout itself becomes the teacher, using the silent language of squares, circles, and precise alignments to narrate an entire cosmic story. This transforms the temple from a building into a spiritual machine, its primary function to educate and elevate the soul of every person who enters its domain. The stones themselves were speaking a timeless sermon, one that asked the visitor to contemplate their own place within the grand, geometric order of the universe. A profound question now emerges from the stone, one that divides historians and fuels endless debate. Were these intricate geometric patterns a conscious, deliberate code left by master builders, or are we, in our modern age, simply projecting meaning onto ancient coincidences? Mainstream archaeology often leans toward a more pragmatic explanation. Skeptical scholars point out that many of the ratios found in these structures, like the golden ratio, are naturally pleasing to the human eye. They argue that builders may have arrived at these proportions through trial and error, guided by an intuitive sense of balance and aesthetics rather than a formal, esoteric mathematical doctrine. For them, the simplest explanation is often the correct one, that a knotted rope was just a tool for laying out a stable foundation, not a key to cosmic truth. They demand more than just numerical correlations found centuries later, asking for direct evidence from primary texts or builders' plans that explicitly mention these sacred geometric principles. Without a clear blueprint or a written treatise from an Egyptian architect detailing the encoding of pi in the Great Pyramid, they remain unconvinced, cautioning against what they see as romantic speculation. Yet, the counterargument is built on a foundation of staggering consistency. How do we explain the same complex principles appearing in the pyramids of Giza, the temples of India, and the cathedrals of medieval Europe, cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years? This was not a shared architectural fad. It was a shared philosophical understanding of the universe. The use of the same harmonic ratios, the same obsession with squaring the circle, and the same celestial alignments across the globe points to something far deeper than independent aesthetic discovery. It suggests a foundational worldview, a perennial philosophy that understood number and geometry as the native language of creation. This was not a secret confined to one secret society, but a widespread, albeit protected, stream of knowledge. The builders were not just creating buildings, they were participating in a universal tradition, each temple a local dialect of this global geometric tongue. This debate is not a mere academic exercise. It forces us to confront our own assumptions about the past. Are we underestimating the intellectual and spiritual sophistication of ancient cultures by dismissing these patterns as happy accidents? Or are we overestimating them, weaving a comforting narrative of lost wisdom? The stones themselves do not speak, but their silent, consistent testimony across continents asks us to consider a third possibility, that the line between practical technique and spiritual philosophy was for them a line that never existed at all. These 5 perfect forms are the geometric keys to the cosmos itself. Known as the Platonic solids, they are the tetrahedron, the cube, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron. What makes them so unique and powerful is their perfect symmetry. Each one is composed of identical faces, with the same number of edges meeting at every corner. In the entire universe of 3-dimensional shapes, these 5, and only these 5, possess this flawless, divine balance. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato did not see them as mere mathematical curiosities. He assigned each solid to a fundamental element of creation, believing they were the literal geometric templates of reality. The stable, grounding cube was earth. The sharp, penetrating tetrahedron was fire. The smooth, flowing icosahedron was water. The graceful, multifaceted octahedron was air. And the most enigmatic of all, the dodecahedron, with its 12 pentagonal faces, was reserved for the cosmos itself, the shape of the ether or the celestial sphere that contained all of creation. This was not just a poetic metaphor, it was a serious philosophical proposition that the universe we live in is built from these 5 geometric foundations. But was this profound idea confined to the philosophers of Greece, or did it find its way into the stones of sacred sites? There is compelling speculation that these universal forms were secretly encoded into architecture. The cube is the most obvious, appearing as the foundational shape for altars and inner sanctuaries across cultures, representing the solidity of the earthly realm. Yet it is the dodecahedron that offers the most tantalizing mystery. Small, beautifully crafted Roman dodecahedrons have been found all across Europe. These hollow, bronze objects, with their 12 pentagonal faces and circular holes, have no known practical purpose. They are not dice, they are not weapons, and their function is never mentioned in any Roman text. Their true purpose remains one of archaeology's great unsolved puzzles. Many researchers now believe they were ritual objects, sacred tools used for spiritual or astronomical purposes. Their form, echoing Plato's assignment of the dodecahedron to the heavens, suggests they may have been models of the cosmic order, devices for understanding the geometry of the constellations or the supposed ether that filled space. This implies that the ancients were not just building temples to honor the gods, they were using these perfect shapes to create a physical map of the very fabric of the universe. By embedding the dodecahedron, even in a small, handheld object, they were holding a model of the cosmos in their hands, a tangible piece of celestial geometry that connected them directly to the structure of all that is. This transforms sacred architecture from a collection of beautiful buildings into a network of cosmic models, each one a deliberate attempt to replicate the divine blueprints of existence. What other perfect shapes are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be recognized as the fundamental code of our world? This planetary vision takes shape in the precise placement of sites across the globe. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, is not situated at a random point in the desert. It lies almost exactly on the 30th parallel north, a line of latitude that circles the Earth. But its position reveals something even more astonishing. The pyramid's base perimeter, when measured in the sacred cubits used by its builders, relates directly to the Earth's polar radius. It is as if the structure was designed to be a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere, a 1 to 43,200 reduction of the planet itself. This is not a vague correlation. It is a precise mathematical relationship that suggests the builders possessed an advanced understanding of geodesy, the science of measuring and representing our world. They were not just building a monument, they were creating a permanent physical record of the Earth's dimensions. This encoding of geodetic knowledge extends far beyond a single pyramid. A captivating theory proposes that many of the world's most sacred sites were deliberately positioned as nodes on a vast planetary grid. This network connects places like Giza, Stonehenge, and the mountaintop citadel of Machu Picchu in Peru along specific great circles and geometric alignments. These locations are often linked by the concept of ley lines, hypothetical lines of energy or ancient trackways that are said to crisscross the landscape. While the existence of measurable Earth energy remains a topic of debate, the geometric consistency in their placement is difficult to dismiss as mere chance. Why would cultures with no known communication with one another build their most important temples at points that form perfect triangles, circles, and other complex shapes when viewed on a world map? This points to the possibility of a lost, global civilization or a universally shared knowledge system that understood the Earth as a single, living entity. The builders may have been attempting to tap into what they perceived as the planet's vital energy, anchoring their sacred geometry to the Earth's own energetic grid. Each temple then becomes more than a local place of worship. It transforms into an acupuncture point for the planet, a conscious node in a grand design to harmonize human civilization with the living body of the Earth. This idea of a planned geodetic network continues to captivate researchers, challenging our deepest assumptions about the technological and spiritual capabilities of the ancient world. This hidden stream of knowledge required a vessel, a human chain of custodians sworn to protect its secrets across the ages. These were not public academies, but closed circles of initiates, from the secluded priesthoods of ancient Egypt to the mystical Pythagorean school in Greece. Within these mystery schools, geometry was not a subject to be published, but a lived experience to be earned. The knowledge was transmitted through a powerful triad of methods: oral tradition, symbolic ritual, and deliberately encoded text. To speak these secrets aloud to the uninitiated was a profound transgression, so the masters taught through spoken word alone, ensuring the core truths were memorized, internalized, and protected from distortion or theft. This created a living library carried in the minds of the adepts. Ritual was their practical textbook. The elaborate ceremonies of these schools were not empty theater, they were immersive lessons in cosmology. An initiate walking a labyrinthine path was physically acting out a spiritual journey encoded in its geometry. The drawing of a complex symbol in the sand during a ceremony was not just a sign, it was a direct demonstration of cosmic principles, a moment where the abstract became momentarily tangible. And when knowledge was committed to parchment, it was veiled in allegory and symbol. A text might appear to be a simple myth about gods and heroes, while to the trained eye, it was a detailed manual of architectural proportion or celestial mechanics. This was how the flame of this sacred science was kept alive, passed carefully from one hand to the next through the long, dark corridors of time. The most famous inheritors of this tradition were the medieval stonemasons' guilds, the direct predecessors of the Freemasons. Within their lodges, the tools of the building trade became rich with symbolic meaning. The compass was not just for drawing circles, it represented the realm of the spirit and the heavens. The square embodied the material world and morality. To work with these tools was to constantly meditate on the union of the celestial and the earthly, the very principle of squaring the circle. Their secret handshakes and coded phrases were not mere clubhouse antics. They were functional safeguards, a way for a traveling master mason to prove his qualification and gain entry to a worksite without revealing the guarded geometric secrets to the common laborer. This system of protected transmission explains the otherwise inexplicable continuity we see in sacred architecture. The same proportional harmonies found in the Great Pyramid appear millennia later in the floor plan of a Gothic cathedral. The same obsession with celestial alignment witnessed at Stonehenge is echoed in the precise orientation of a Renaissance chapel. This was not a case of independent rediscovery. It was the quiet, unbroken work of a hidden lineage. These custodians understood that this knowledge was a power too great to be left in the open, a key to understanding the universe that had to be earned through dedication and spiritual maturity. They built their silent, geometric sermon into the very stones of history, ensuring its message would endure long after their names were forgotten. This silent language of form and number was meant to be felt, not just seen. The master builders were not just encoding secrets, they were carefully engineering human experience itself. Every proportion, every shaft of light, and every harmonic echo was a deliberate tool to guide the visitor's mind into a specific state of being, from tranquil peace to overwhelming awe. This ancient understanding finds a modern parallel in the emerging science of neuroarchitecture, a field that studies how the spaces we build directly shape our brains, influencing our emotions, our stress levels, and even our cognitive function. The great temples were, in essence, the world's first neuroarchitectural projects, designed as machines for inner transformation. Consider the simple act of walking from the bright, bustling exterior of a Gothic cathedral into its vast, dimly lit nave. Your eyes need a moment to adjust. The noise of the world fades away, replaced by a profound silence broken only by the echo of your own footsteps. Your gaze is drawn upward along soaring stone ribs, following lines that converge in the distant darkness of the vaulted ceiling. This sensory journey is no accident. The shift from the chaotic, horizontal plane of the everyday world to the ordered, vertical aspiration of the sacred space triggers a psychological response. The immense scale makes you feel small, yet the harmonious proportions prevent that feeling from becoming intimidating, instead fostering a sense of reverent wonder. This is the architecture of humility and elevation working in concert. The play of light was another masterfully manipulated variable. Stained glass windows were not just biblical comics, they were sophisticated light filters. They transformed the raw, blinding glare of the sun into a soft, diffused glow filled with rich color, painting the interior with a light that felt divine and otherworldly. In the Hindu temples of India, the path to the inner sanctum grows progressively darker and more confined. By the time a devotee stands before the deity, they have moved from the outer world of sensory distraction into a space of near-total sensory deprivation, perfect for turning one's awareness inward. This carefully choreographed progression uses contrast and compression to make the final, sacred encounter feel like an explosive revelation of light and presence. Even the resonant frequencies of these spaces played a role. The specific dimensions of a chamber, calculated using those simple musical ratios, can enhance certain sound frequencies. A chant or a prayer spoken in such a space would not just be heard, it would be felt vibrating in the chest, adding a physical, visceral dimension to the spiritual practice. The temple was a comprehensive sensory experience. a pre-written script for a spiritual journey where you are both the audience and the main character. Every architectural decision was a line in that script, guiding you step by step toward a moment of transcendence. These builders knew a truth we are only now verifying with science, that the space around us doesn't just house our bodies, it actively sculpts our consciousness. Our modern mathematical tools now reveal a hidden layer of this ancient language, one of infinite complexity. Fractal geometry describes patterns that repeat themselves at every scale, from the vast branching of a river delta down to the microscopic veins of a leaf. A tiny piece of the pattern contains the essential blueprint of the whole. This self-similar design is woven throughout the natural world, in ferns, clouds, and snowflakes, and we now find its unmistakable signature etched into sacred stone. Look at the soaring shikaras of Hindu temples like the Kandarya Mahadeva. The tower is not a single monolithic spire. It is a cascade of smaller, identical spires, each one a perfect miniature of the central form, clustering and repeating in an upward explosion of stone. The entire structure is a single, frozen moment of cosmic growth, a visual echo of the principle of as above, so below. The same recursive genius unfolds in the stucco carvings and Muqarnas's vaulting of Islamic architecture. What appears from a distance as a beautiful honeycomb dome reveals itself up close as an impossibly intricate lattice of tiny, repeating niches and cells, each one a smaller version of the grand design. This was not mere decorative obsession. It was a profound philosophical statement rendered in plaster and tile. By building fractals, the ancient architects were creating a microcosm, a model of a universe that is endlessly generative and self-reflecting. They were illustrating the idea that the same laws that govern the grand sweep of the galaxies are also at work in the arrangement of a single atom. They built a reality where every small part contains the whole, and every temple, therefore, becomes a complete model of existence. Long before computers could visualize the Mandelbrot set, these builders were hand-carving its principles, demonstrating an intuitive grasp of infinity itself. What does it mean that our most advanced mathematics is only now catching up to their Stone Age wisdom? That flame of geometric knowledge, carefully guarded through the Dark Ages, erupted into a brilliant new dawn during the Renaissance. It was not an invention, but a passionate rediscovery. Artists and architects across Europe, hungry for a new kind of truth, began to see the writings of Plato and the ruins of antiquity as fragments of a lost instruction manual for creation. They became convinced that mathematics and geometry were the divine language in which God had written the universe, and to create true beauty, one had to learn to speak this language fluently. Leon Battista Alberti, a seminal architect and theorist, famously declared that a building must be designed like a perfectly proportioned body, with every part in harmonious relation to the whole. This was not a vague aesthetic ideal, it was a precise mathematical pursuit. You can see this philosophy come to life in his design for the Church of Sant'Andrea in Mantua. Its facade is a symphony of calculated ratios, where the central arch's height relates to its width in a golden proportion, and the entire frontispiece is governed by a system of interlocking squares and circles. To step inside is to enter a space where the very dimensions seem to sing, a physical manifestation of the belief that divine order could be captured in brick and mortar. This conscious revival sought to build a bridge, using geometry as its arch, connecting the mystical wisdom of the ancient world with the emerging rationalism of modern science. No single image captures this fusion more perfectly than Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. That iconic drawing is far more than a study of human anatomy. It is a profound philosophical statement. Here is the human form, the microcosm, perfectly centered within the macrocosm of the universe. His outstretched limbs touch both the square, the symbol of the earthly and material, and the circle, the symbol of the celestial and eternal. Leonardo was illustrating the ancient concept of squaring the circle, demonstrating that humanity itself is the living bridge between heaven and earth. The navel is the literal center of the circle, while the genitals form the center of the square, a deliberate geometric mapping of our dual nature. This was the Renaissance ideal in a single, powerful image, man as the measure of all things, and geometry as the ruler by which that measure is taken. This principle infused the very canvas of Renaissance art. Painters like Botticelli and Piero della Francesca composed their masterpieces not by intuition alone, but with compass and straightedge. In the birth of Venus, the goddess is not randomly placed upon her shell. She stands at a precise point determined by the golden ratio, her body's proportions echoing the same divine harmony. The entire scene is structured on an invisible geometric grid, ensuring that every element, from the angle of a floating flower to the curve of a wind god's cheek, contributes to a balanced, resonant whole that feels inherently beautiful to us, even if we cannot consciously perceive the mathematics behind it. These artists were not hiding a secret code, they were practicing a public philosophy, one that declared that to create a beautiful painting was to participate in the mind of God. They were rebuilding the temple not with stone walls but with pigment and perspective, reminding a waking world that the same geometric laws that guide the planets also guide the human hand. This same geometric language flowed through the secret streams of alchemy and Kabbalah, where symbols became vessels for profound spiritual truths. In the cryptic world of Western alchemy, the goal was never merely to turn lead into gold in a physical sense. That was the outer shell of a much deeper, inner process. The alchemist's true work was the transformation of the human soul from a state of base imperfection, symbolized by lead, into a state of spiritual perfection and enlightenment, symbolized by gold. And the entire roadmap for this internal journey was written in sacred geometry. The squaring of the circle was not an abstract puzzle for them. It was the ultimate symbol of this great work, representing the arduous task of unifying the volatile, boundless human spirit, the circle, with the stable, ordered, and perfected soul, the square. Their intricate illustrations of this process are filled with interlocking circles, triangles within squares, and complex nested shapes, each one a coded instruction for a stage of inner purification and union. This was not a chemistry textbook, it was a geometric guide to self-realization. Running parallel to this was the profound system of Jewish mysticism known as the Kabbalah. At its heart is the Tree of Life, a diagram of 10 spheres or sephiroth connected by 22 paths. This is not a random drawing, it is a precise geometric map of the cosmos and the human soul. The tree describes the process through which the infinite, unknowable God, called Ein Sof, emanates outward through successive vessels to create the finite, manifest world. Each sephira represents a different divine attribute like wisdom, understanding, or mercy, and the paths between them are the channels through which divine energy flows. The entire structure forms a harmonious, balanced pattern that echoes the same proportional relationships found in a Gothic cathedral's floor plan or the dimensions of Solomon's temple. The Kabbalist seeks to climb this tree through meditation and ethical living, reversing the flow of creation to reunite with the divine source. The geometry of the tree provides the structure for this spiritual ascent, making the invisible process of emanation visible and navigable. What we see here is a stunning convergence. The alchemist's transformation, the Kabbalist's ascent, and the temple builder's architecture are all using the same geometric vocabulary to describe the same cosmic process. The temple is the alchemist's flask and the Kabbalist's tree of life made of stone, a physical space designed to facilitate that very transformation within the person who enters it. This points to a unified perennial philosophy, a single hidden wisdom that has worn many different masks throughout history. Whether encoded in a medieval manuscript, a mystical diagram, or the silent walls of a sanctuary, the message remains constant that a geometric order underpins all of existence, and by understanding its language, we can find our way back to the source. The stones of these ancient temples were not just meant to be seen, they were designed to be heard. A silent hum seems to linger in their halls, a whisper of a forgotten science now emerging as the field of archaeoacoustics. This discipline explores the sonic properties of ancient structures, revealing that their geometry was a precise tool for shaping sound itself. The very dimensions of a chamber, the curve of a wall, the specific material of the stone, all conspire to trap, amplify, or distort sound waves in deliberate ways. This was not an accident of construction. It was the final layer of encoding, turning an entire temple into a colossal, finely tuned instrument. Deep beneath the island of Malta lies the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, a labyrinthine underground sanctuary carved from solid rock over 5,000 years ago. Within its depths is a peculiar oval chamber known as the Oracle Room. When a person speaks in a deep voice within this space, the sound does not just echo, it undergoes a profound transformation. The chamber resonates, amplifying the voice into a powerful, pervasive vibration that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, filling the entire complex. This is not simple reverberation. It is a resonant frequency that matches the vibrational frequency of the human brain in a meditative state. To stand in that chamber while it resonates is to feel the sound in your bones, a physical, palpable force that can alter perception and induce a trance-like state of consciousness. The builders carved this room with a specific geometric shape to achieve this exact sonic effect, creating a built-in technology for spiritual experience. Far across the Atlantic, the Mayan pyramids at Chichen Itza demonstrate a different acoustic marvel. Stand at the base of the Great Kukulkan Pyramid and clap your hands. The sound does not return as a simple echo. It bounces off the massive stone steps and returns to your ears as a perfect chirp, an uncanny imitation of the sacred Quetzal bird, a creature deeply woven into Mayan mythology. This was not a quirky byproduct of the stairs. It is a sophisticated sonic illusion engineered through the pyramid's precise, repetitive geometry. Each step acts as a sound diffractor, breaking the clap into a rapid series of reflections that our brain interprets as a bird's call. This was a divine signal, a way for the architecture itself to speak with the voice of a god, confirming the sacred nature of the space to all who heard it. These sonic landscapes were integral to the temple's purpose. A low, resonant hum could calm the mind for meditation, while a sharp, directional echo could startle a worshipper into heightened awareness. The geometry of sound was a tool for healing, for ritual theater, and for directly shifting consciousness. The master builders understood that true sacred space was not just a visual harmony, but a full sensory immersion. They engineered environments where the very air vibrated with intention, where a spoken prayer would be physically felt, transforming words into a tangible force that resonated through the body and the soul. This geometric blueprint appears again and again, a recurring dream across civilizations that never met. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica, the pyramid form emerges as a universal symbol of the sacred mountain, the axis connecting earth to sky. The Great Pyramid of Giza and the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza were built oceans and millennia apart by cultures with no known contact. Yet both structures embody a staggering precision in their alignment to the cardinal directions and encode complex astronomical knowledge in their very angles. They are not just similar in shape, they are siblings in spirit, born from the same understanding that a certain geometry can bridge the human and the divine. This pattern repeats in sacred circles. The intricate Vastu Purusha mandala that forms the foundation of every Hindu temple is a square diagram of the cosmos, divided into perfect grids that dictate every wall and pillar. Travel across the world to the Great Plains of North America, and you will find the Native American medicine wheel, a stone circle laid out with spokes that align to the solstice sunrises and other celestial events. One is built of marble and intricate carving, the other of simple stones on an open plain, yet both are mandalas, symbolic maps of the universe used to orient human life within the cosmic order. They share the same essential grammar of the circle, the center point, and the cardinal directions, speaking the same geometric language despite an impossible gulf of time and space. Then there is the Fibonacci sequence, that famous series of numbers where each is the sum of the two before it, creating a spiral that mirrors the growth of a seashell. This pattern of life appears with deliberate intent in the architecture of the Greek Parthenon, its proportions humming with the golden ratio derived from this sequence. At the very same time, on the other side of the world, ancient Chinese bronzes and scroll paintings were being composed using the exact same principles of harmonic progression, creating art that felt naturally and inherently balanced. How can we explain this? Two compelling theories emerge from the stone. The first suggests a common, forgotten source, a primordial civilization or a single, lost wellspring of knowledge from which all later cultures drank. Perhaps master builders traveled the globe, sharing this sacred science, or perhaps a cataclysm scattered a once unified people who carried the seeds of this geometry with them to every corner of the earth. The second, perhaps even more profound, theory is that these geometric truths are innate. They are hardwired into human consciousness, a fundamental part of our perceptual and spiritual operating system. Just as we are born with the capacity for language, we are born with an intuitive sense for these patterns of harmony and growth. Different cultures, in their quest for meaning, simply rediscovered this universal language independently, giving it names that suited their own worldviews, but always arriving at the same fundamental principles of the circle, the spiral, and the divine proportion. This means the urge to build a pyramid or a medicine wheel is not something we learned, it is something we are. The deepest secrets of the universe were not just written in stone, they were written in us, waiting for our hands to give them form. These temples were not just symbolic maps, they were functional cosmograms, three-dimensional models of the universe designed for a pilgrim's feet to walk through. The journey through these sacred spaces was a guided tour of cosmic geography, from the darkest underworld to the brightest celestial sphere. In the lush highlands of Indonesia, the colossal stone mandala of Borobudur rises from the earth. This is not a building with interior rooms, but a vast, open-air pilgrimage path carved in stone. A visitor does not simply enter Borobudur, they ascend it, moving in a ritual clockwise spiral around its 9 stacked terraces. The lowest levels are square, representing the world of desire and form, adorned with over 2,000 relief panels depicting the causes and effects of human action. As the pilgrim climbs higher, the terraces gradually transition from the square to the circle, symbolizing the shift from the structured, material world to the formless, infinite realm of spirit. The final 3 circular terraces are topped by 72 latticed stupas, each containing a statue of the Buddha, culminating in a massive central stupa that represents ultimate enlightenment or nirvana. Every single step on this stone mountain is a deliberate movement through the Buddhist cosmos, a physical ascent that mirrors a spiritual one. The pilgrim is not learning about cosmology from a book, they are experiencing it with their entire body. Their climb a powerful metaphor for leaving the illusion of the material world behind. This same yearning to connect earth and heaven defined the ziggurats of ancient Mesopotamia. These towering, stepped pyramids were not tombs like their Egyptian counterparts. They were literally considered stairways to the gods. Their core was made of sun-dried mud brick, but their exterior was often faced with fired brick in vibrant colors, each level possibly dedicated to a different celestial body. A priest would climb the monumental staircase that wrapped around the structure, moving from the profane world below toward the small temple at the summit, the dwelling place of the city's patron deity. This was not an abstract connection, it was a physical and spiritual conduit. The ziggurate's geometry was a deliberate attempt to project a single, powerful line from the flat plane into the sky, a man-made mountain that served as an axis mundi, the central axis of the world. By walking this sacred geometry, the priest was traversing the cosmic layers, acting as an intermediary between humanity and the divine. In both of these examples, the temple's layout is an explicit instruction manual on the nature of reality. It teaches the initiate about the layered structure of the cosmos, the path of the soul, and the ultimate goal of existence. The stones themselves become the teacher, and the act of walking through them becomes the lesson. What would it feel like to walk a path where every turn and every step was a sentence in an ancient architectural scripture? Long before the first stone of the Great Pyramids was laid, our ancestors were already speaking this geometric language across the open landscape. The sheer age of these sites defies our standard history. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, for instance, was deliberately buried in sand around 10,000 years ago, which means its creation stretches back even further into the mist of prehistory. This was a time before writing, before metal tools, and before permanent farms. Yet here we find a sprawling complex of stone circles, each one crafted from multi-ton limestone pillars, many carved with intricate reliefs of animals. The layout is not a random scattering of rocks. The enclosures are distinctly oval, with two large central pillars carefully positioned within each ring. This reveals a conscious, pre-planned geometric arrangement, a deliberate act of creation by people we often think of as simple hunter-gatherers. What could have compelled them to undertake such a colossal, coordinated effort? The answer seems written in the stones themselves, a primal urge to mark the land according to a cosmic pattern they had observed. Across Europe, the Konark stones in France present a different but equally staggering geometric puzzle. Over 3,000 standing stones were erected in long, parallel rows that stretch for miles across the countryside. From above, the alignment is breathtaking. The stones are arranged with a precision that suggests a unified plan, a grand design executed over generations. These are not just a forest of monoliths, they form clear avenues, rectangles, and other geometric formations. The most compelling evidence of their purpose lies in their orientation. Many of the Konark rows are aligned to the rising and setting of the sun and moon at key points in their cycles, such as the solstices. This means that over 10,000 years ago, people with only stone tools were surveying the land with incredible accuracy, using geometry to create a permanent, large-scale astronomical observatory. The very ground beneath their feet became a chalkboard for celestial mathematics. This forces a radical rethink of human intellectual development. We are not looking at the crude beginnings of science. We are looking at a fully formed, sophisticated understanding of space, alignment, and cyclical time, encoded in the most durable medium they had, the Earth itself. These megalithic architects prove that the sacred language of geometry is not a product of civilization, but its very foundation. Numbers were the soul of this geometry. The ancient master builders saw them not as abstract symbols for counting, but as the living archetypes of creation itself, the fundamental frequencies from which all reality resonates. This was the profound Pythagorean conviction that all is number. For them, the cosmos was a great mathematical symphony, and geometric forms were the visible, tangible notes of that symphony, the physical manifestation of numerical truth. This belief added a potent numerological layer to their stonework, where specific numbers held immense symbolic power, deliberately woven into the very fabric of their temples. The number 3, for instance, was universally revered as the principle of the Trinity, representing a fundamental process of creation, preservation, and destruction, or body, mind, and spirit. You see this encoded in the triple spires of a Gothic cathedral facade, or the threefold division of a temple's inner sanctum. Then there is the number 4, the symbol of stability and the material world, representing the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 classical elements, and the 4 seasons. This is why so many sacred structures are built on a square or rectangular plan, grounding the celestial in the earthly. The number 7 held the key to the cosmos, reflecting the 7 wandering celestial bodies visible to the naked eye, the 7 days of the week, and the 7 notes of the musical scale. This sacred number often dictated the number of tiers on a ziggurat, the circuits of a ritual labyrinth, or the concentric circles of a stone calendar. And finally, the number 12, the number of cosmic order, embodied by the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 months of the year. This archetype appears in the 12 pillars around a holy tomb, the 12 gates of the heavenly city described in scripture, or the 12 niches in a circular temple. When a builder laid out a temple to be 12 cubits wide, they were not just measuring a space, they were invoking the entire celestial order, embedding the zodiac itself into the foundation. They were manipulating what they believed were the fundamental numerical forces of the universe, using architecture as a kind of symbolic technology to harmonize human existence with the grand, mathematical design of all that is. Why count when you can conjure? Stone offered a permanence that human memory could not guarantee. These builders were not just constructing for their own time, they were thinking in millennia, creating a library that could survive floods, fires, and the fall of empires. Parchment decays, oral traditions shift with each telling, but a pyramid or a cathedral stands as an open book written in a language that never goes out of print. This was their ultimate act of preservation, a way to ensure that the core truths of their world, from the dimensions of the earth to the cycles of the stars, would never be lost. They were sending a message in a bottle made of granite, addressed to a future they would never see. But this library had a unique rule. You could not simply read its texts, you had to walk through them. The encoding was not just for preservation, it was for initiation. The true meaning of the geometry could not be fully grasped from a drawing or a lecture. It had to be experienced physically and emotionally within the sacred space itself. A spiritual seeker would enter the temple and be guided through a sequence of chambers, each with its own proportions, its own play of light and shadow, its own resonant frequency. This carefully orchestrated journey was a form of non-verbal teaching, a direct transmission of knowledge that bypassed the rational mind to speak to a deeper level of consciousness. To stand in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, to feel its massive, precisely fitted stones and its specific harmonic ratios, is a different order of understanding than reading about its dimensions in a book. It is an immersive lesson in scale, stability, and silence. The architecture itself becomes the teacher, and the initiate, by simply being present and receptive, absorbs the lesson on a cellular level. This leads to the third and most profound reason, the practical application of these principles. They were not just preserving abstract knowledge, they were harnessing what they perceived as the fundamental forces of the cosmos. By building a structure that embodied the golden ratio, they believed they were tuning it to the frequency of life itself. By aligning a temple to the solstice sun, they were plugging it into the engine of the solar system. The temple was a spiritual technology, a device designed to amplify prayer, to facilitate healing, to alter consciousness, and to bring human beings into a resonant harmony with the universe. The stone was the battery, and the geometry was the circuit, all working together to create a space where the boundary between the earthly and the divine became thin, and a seeker could, for a moment, touch the infinite. They built not to conceal the truth, but to protect it, and to ensure that it could only be unlocked by those who were truly ready to walk the path and experience its power for themselves. That line between genuine mystery and modern myth is a fine one to walk. As our decoding of this ancient language reaches its final stages, we must pause to clear away the popular speculation that often clouds the truth. One of the most persistent and alluring myths is the idea that these magnificent structures, from the pyramids to Puma Punku, were built by extraterrestrial hands. This theory, while captivating, fundamentally robs our own ancestors of their immense ingenuity. It suggests that humanity was incapable of such achievement, ignoring the overwhelming archaeological evidence of quarries, worker settlements, copper chisels, and simple ramps that prove these were human endeavors, driven by human intellect and generations of backbreaking labor. The real wonder is not that aliens did it, but that people did with nothing but stone tools, profound observation, and a unified vision that spanned centuries. Another common pitfall is the temptation of number juggling, a practice where modern researchers take a structure's measurements and force them to fit preconceived mathematical constants, from pi to the speed of light. When you have enough measurements to play with, you can inevitably find a ratio that seems significant, but this is often a case of seeing patterns in the noise rather than discerning the builder's true intent. A responsible approach requires scholarly rigor and deep contextual understanding. We must ask, does this mathematical relationship appear in the builder's own known texts or artifacts? Does it align with the cosmological principles they documented, or are we simply projecting our own numerical obsessions onto their stone canvas? This is not to say the encoding was not deliberate. The evidence for a conscious use of harmonic ratios and celestial alignments is simply too consistent and too widespread to dismiss. The key is to ground our awe in the historical and archaeological record, celebrating the demonstrable genius of ancient engineers and priests without needing to invent alien architects or magical technologies. Their true tools were patience, observation, and a sacred worldview that saw geometry as the bridge between earth and heaven. By debunking these myths, we do not diminish the mystery, we refine it. We are left with a far more profound question. How did these cultures develop and execute such a sophisticated, globally resonant philosophy of sacred space? That is a human mystery worth exploring for ages to come. Our journey through this silent language of stone reveals a legacy of staggering human genius. We have walked the path from the simple, generative circle of the Vessica Piscis to the complex fractals of temple spires. We have traced the golden ratio from the nautilus shell to the pyramid slope and listened to the harmonic echoes of chambers tuned to the frequency of the human soul. These ancient builders were far from primitive. They were master scientists of the spirit, profound philosophers who encoded their deepest understanding of the cosmos, the laws of mathematics, and the very journey of human consciousness into their most enduring creations. This hidden language is a permanent challenge to our modern perspective, urging us to look deeper and see the world not as a random collection of objects, but as an interconnected, intelligently designed whole. The stones have whispered their long-held secrets across the millennia. The enduring question that now remains is, are we truly listening? Let this exploration be an open invitation for you to look anew at the world's ancient wonders, to see the sacred geometry hidden in plain sight. We would love to hear which of these encoded mysteries resonates most deeply with you. Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to continue unraveling history's greatest puzzles with